For a moment, the room felt too quiet. Amy stared at the floor, afraid to meet Lou's eyes. She thought he might think less of her. She thought maybe she had broken some invisible rule about always being strong. But when she finally glanced up, she didn't find judgment. She found someone who wasn't just beside her. He was with her. Fully, completely, without hesitation. Lou leaned back slightly, taking a slow breath, as if he could sense the weight still pressing on her chest. He didn't rush to talk. He wanted her to feel the calm before any more words came. Then, in his soft, steady voice, he said something that sank deeper than anything she'd heard all day. "You don't have to walk through this alone, Amy." They weren't big words. They weren't poetic. But they carried a warmth that wrapped around her like a small light cutting through the darkness. Amy felt her breath catch, not from sadness this time, but from the shock of being truly understood. Lou shifted a little closer, still careful, still respectful. He didn't invade her space. He simply filled the emptiness around her with presence. The kind of presence that said, even in the dark, "I'm right here," for the first time in hours, maybe even days. Amy didn't feel like she was drowning. She slowly rested her head against her knees, trying to steady herself. Lou didn't touch her again, but his voice stayed calm, anchoring her. "You don't have to explain everything," he added. "Just breathe. I'm not going anywhere." Amy swallowed hard. No one had ever offered her that kind of safety. People promised things all the time, but they rarely meant them. Lou was different. With him, promises weren't loud or dramatic. They were quiet, but solid, unshakable. And for the first time, Amy realized something she had never allowed herself to believe. She didn't need to be strong all the time. Not when someone like Lou existed. Someone who didn't just show up in the good moments, but stepped into her darkness without fear, without doubt, without leaving. Lou didn't just stand behind her. He stood with her. And that changed everything. Amy didn't notice it at first. But Lou had a way of holding her together without making it obvious. He didn't smother her with questions. He didn't try to force her into positivity. Instead, he offered the kind of support that slips in gently, almost unnoticed, yet powerful enough to keep someone from collapsing. She was still curled slightly, her breathing uneven. When Lou stood up slowly, not in a way that made her feel abandoned, but in a way that said he was about to do something for her. A moment later, he placed a small glass of water beside her, not pushed into her hands, not forced on her, just placed gently, like a reminder. Take care of yourself, even a little. Small things, quiet things, but each one mattered. Amy lifted her head a little, surprised he wasn't staring at her, waiting to see what she'd do. Lou had turned slightly away, giving her space, giving her dignity. Most people hover when you break down. Lou protected her privacy, even while standing inches away. That mattered more than she could explain. He spotted the crumpled sweater on the back of the chair and picked it up, folding it neatly before setting it beside her. Again, small, simple, but meaningful. Everything he did said the same message: I've got you, even in the little things. Amy didn't realize tears were building again, softer this time, not heavy from sadness, but warm from gratitude. She had never had someone care for her in ways that didn't need applause or recognition. Lou wasn't trying to be a hero. He wasn't trying to fix her. He was just present, thoughtful, solid. Then Lou did something that caught her breath. He sat down on the floor next to her, leaning his back against the same wall she sat against. Not above her, not standing over her, but right beside her, on her level. It was his way of saying, I'm not here to lift you up by force. I'm here to sit with you until you can stand again. Amy glanced at him, really looked at him. He wasn't uncomfortable. He wasn't awkward. He wasn't waiting for her to snap out of it. He was simply there, steady as a heartbeat. Patient in a way that felt almost unreal. He finally spoke, his voice low and gentle. You don't need to pretend with me. Just be however you are. Amy felt her chest loosen again. The pressure that had been crushing her felt a little lighter, not because her problems had vanished, but because someone finally shared the weight, not with grand actions, but with quiet, steady kindness. Lou didn't need big gestures to show loyalty. His loyalty lived in the tiny moments, in the silence, in the stillness, in the way he held the broken parts of her without ever making her feel broken. And in those quiet seconds, Amy understood something she had never fully seen before. Lou wasn't just there for her. He was there with her, and that made all the difference. As the minutes passed, something inside Amy began to shift. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just a quiet settling, like dust finally drifting to the ground after a long, heavy storm. She didn't feel fixed. She didn't feel healed, but she felt steadier. It was the kind of calm that only appears when someone finally stops pretending they're okay. She leaned her head back against the wall, her breathing no longer shaky but slow and deep. Lou didn't speak. He didn't celebrate her tiny progress. He simply stayed right there beside her, as if he knew the smallest steps were often the hardest ones to take. He glanced at her just once to make sure she wasn't overwhelmed, then let her find her footing at her own pace. Amy looked at her hands, still trembling a little, but not as much. She could feel her heartbeat slowing. Not because her problems had disappeared, but because she wasn't carrying them alone anymore. She didn't need to force strength this time. She allowed it to return naturally, like a tired traveler finally finding a place to rest. Minutes earlier, Amy felt like she couldn't breathe. Now, she lifted her head and quietly wiped her face. The tears had left faint lines on her cheeks, but she didn't feel ashamed of them anymore. Lou had made it safe to feel. Safe to crack. Safe to be human. Lou noticed her small movements. Noticing was something he did without trying. His voice broke the silence gently, as if he didn't want to disturb the fragile peace she had found. There you go. Just take your time. Those words weren't instructions. They were permission. And Amy didn't realize how much she needed permission to rest, to breathe, to not rush back into pretending she was fine. She lifted the glass of water he had placed earlier and took a slow sip. It tasted different now. Not like something she needed, but something she deserved. A tiny act of self-care that she had ignored for far too long. And in that quiet moment, something powerful happened. She straightened her shoulders. It wasn't a bold move. It wasn't loud, but it was real. It was her way of saying, "I'm still here. I'm not done yet." Lou noticed, of course. The smallest change in her posture, the hint of strength returning to her eyes, he saw all of it. Not with surprise, but with a soft pride that warmed the air between them. He didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't say, "See? You're strong." He didn't need to. Amy simply breathed in and felt a small spark inside her. A spark she thought she had lost. A spark that reminded her she still had fight left in her. Even if it was just a flicker for now, Lou didn't give her strength. He reminded her she still had her own. And that reminder, gentle and quiet, was enough to help her rise again, one steady breath at a time. The room was still quiet, but the silence felt different now. Amy wasn't sinking into it anymore. She was resting in it. There was a soft steadiness in the air. It's a kind that only comes when someone has finally let go of the weight they've been carrying for too long. She sat a little taller, her eyes no longer hiding behind fear or exhaustion. And Lou, he stayed exactly where he always was. Right beside her, steady, reliable, unshaken. Amy glanced at him, and this time, she didn't look away. For the first time that day, she let herself really see him, not just as the calm presence who walked into the storm with her, but as the person who chose her side every single time, without hesitation. There was no judgment in his eyes, no impatience, no pressure. Just loyalty, the kind that doesn't make noise, but leaves an impact deep enough to last a lifetime. She took a quiet breath. "Thank you," she whispered. It was simple, almost too soft to hear. But Lou nodded, as if her words told a whole story. "You don't have to thank me," he said gently. "I'm here because you matter." Amy felt something warm rise in her chest, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time. Not happiness, not relief. Something deeper. The kind of trust that only grows when someone stays through your darkest moments. The kind of gratitude that comes when you realize someone chose you even when you couldn't choose yourself. Lou got up slowly. offering her his hand not to pull her up forcefully, but to support her if she wanted it. She hesitated for only a moment before placing her hand in his. His grip was firm but kind, reminding her that she didn't have to face the world alone. It's not anymore. As she stood, she felt a new strength settle inside her. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It didn't erase the challenges waiting outside that door, but it was real. It belonged to her, and she knew she wasn't stepping forward alone this time. Lou walked beside her, matching her pace without trying to lead or push. That was the thing about him. He never tried to control her journey. He simply walked with her through it, steady as ever. Before they reached the doorway, Amy paused. She turned to him, her voice a bit stronger now. "You really aren't going anywhere. Or why?" The world can turn cold in a single moment. One bad day, one heavy silence, and suddenly you feel completely alone. But not Amy. Because even when everything around her fell apart, one person refused to let her face it alone. Lou, the one who would stand behind her even. Watarami didn't expect her day to crumble the way it did. It started like any other quiet, simple, ordinary. She poured her coffee, tied her hair, and told herself she'd be okay. But life has a strange way of testing the strongest hearts. All it took was one message, one moment of disappointment, and suddenly her entire world felt heavier than her body could hold. She sat at her desk, staring at the wall, feeling the kind of silence that makes your chest burn. She tried to tell herself she could handle it alone. She always did. She always acted tough, even when her heart begged for help. But that day, her strength didn't show up for her. She felt the weight pressing harder, like someone had reached inside her and switched off all the light. She didn't cry at first. She just sat there, frozen, wondering how much more she was supposed to take. Amy didn't want anyone to see her like this. She didn't want to explain herself. She didn't want to hear empty advice or fake comfort. She just wanted the pain to stop echoing in her chest. Then she heard it footsteps, slow, steady, familiar. Lou didn't. He didn't ask what was wrong or tell her to stay strong. Simply stepped into the room and took a seat beside her, without a single word. And somehow, that quiet presence meant more than anything anyone else could have said. Amy kept her gaze on the floor, but she felt it lose calm energy wrapping around her like a soft blanket. He didn't need to ask what happened. He didn't need the details. He could see it in her shaking hands, the way she bit her lip to stop it from trembling. He understood her in ways no one else did. Lou knew when she needed space and when she needed someone to stay. And right then, she needed someone to stay. He didn't let her feel weak. He didn't make her feel dramatic. He made her feel human, safe, seen. And in that moment, Amy realized something powerful. She wasn't alone, not as long as Lou was around. He would always show up, always notice the cracks she tried to hide, and always stand right beside her, silently reminding her she didn't need to carry everything on her. Oh, no one else did. Amy didn't expect her day to crumble the way it did. It started like any other quiet, simple, ordinary. She poured her coffee, tied her hair, and told herself she'd be okay. But life has a strange way of testing the strongest hearts. All it took was one message, one moment of disappointment, and suddenly her entire world felt heavier than her body could hold. She sat at her desk, staring at the wall, feeling the kind of silence that makes your chest burn. She tried to tell herself she could handle it alone. She always did. She always acted tough, even when her heart begged for help. But that day, her strength didn't show up for her. She felt the weight pressing harder, like someone had reached inside her and switched off all the light. She didn't cry at first. She just sat there, frozen, wondering how much more she was supposed to take. Amy didn't want anyone to see her like this. She didn't want to explain herself. She didn't want to hear empty advice or fake comfort. She just wanted the pain to stop echoing in her chest. Then she heard it footsteps, slow, steady, familiar. Lou didn't. He didn't ask what was wrong or tell her to stay strong. Simply stepped into the room and took a seat beside her, without a single word. And somehow, that quiet presence meant more than anything anyone else could have said. Amy kept her gaze on the floor, but she felt it Lou's calm energy wrapping around her like a soft blanket. He didn't need to ask what happened. He didn't need the details. He could see it in her shaking hands, the way she bit her lip to stop it from trembling. He understood her in ways no one else did. Lou knew when she needed space and when she needed someone to stay. And right then, she needed someone to stay. He didn't let her feel weak. He didn't make her feel dramatic. He made her feel human, safe, seen. And in that moment, Amy realized something powerful. She wasn't alone, not as long as Lou was around. He would always show up, always notice the cracks she tried to hide, and always stand right beside her, silently reminding her. She didn't need to carry everything on her own. Amy had always been the kind of person who carried her pain quietly. She grew up believing that strong people stay silent, that strong people don't break, and that strong people don't ask for help. So even on the days when her chest tightened and her thoughts spun in circles, she forced a smile, hoping it would fool the world long enough for the storm to pass. But that day was different. The weight didn't stay inside, it showed. In the way her shoulders dropped, in the slow, shaky breath she tried to hide, in the way her eyes avoided every reflection, afraid to see her own exhaustion staring back. She kept telling herself, just push through. You always do. But pushing only made the pain shove back harder. Her phone buzzed again, another message she didn't want to open. Another reminder of expectations she couldn't meet. Another wave she didn't feel strong enough to swim through. Amy placed the phone face down, almost as if she hoped the world would quiet itself if she stopped looking at it. But the noise inside her didn't listen. It kept building, loud and heavy, until the only thing she wanted was escape, not from people, but from the pressure sitting on her chest then. Without saying a word, Lou reached out and gently slid the phone away from her. Not because he wanted to take control, but because he wanted to give her a breath. A moment where the world didn't demand anything from her. A moment where she could just exist without feeling judged or rushed or overwhelmed. Amy blinked, surprised. Most people told her to just ignore it. Lou actually helped her do it. He didn't lean in close or try to crack a joke. He didn't feed her cliches about strength or positivity. Instead, he sat beside her, hands resting calmly on his knees, breathing slow and steady, as if offering her the rhythm she had forgotten. Lou had this strange ability to make silence feel comforting instead of scary. With him, silence didn't feel like loneliness, it felt like safety. Amy felt her body slowly loosen, like she had been holding her breath for hours, and Lou finally reminded her it was okay to breathe again. She didn't need to tell him she was drowning. He already knew. And he wasn't there to drag her out forcefully. He was there to keep her afloat until she found her strength again. And as she glanced at him, even for just a second, something inside her softened. Not because her problems vanished, but because someone finally saw the weight she carried and chose to shoulder a piece of it with her. Amy held herself together for as long as she could. But even the strongest hearts have limits. The moment Lou stayed by her side, something inside her began to crack, not in a painful way, but in a freeing one. Like she finally had permission to stop pretending she was fine. Her breath grew uneven, her hands trembled slightly, and she pressed her lips together, fighting the emotions she had spent all day pushing down. For a moment, she stared ahead, refusing to blink. She thought if she looked away, even for a second, the tears she had been swallowing would escape. But the truth is, nobody can outrun their own feelings forever. And in that quiet room, with Lou sitting beside her like a shield she didn't know she was allowed to lean on, storm finally hit. It didn't start with tears. It started with a tiny, fragile whisper, her voice cracking on a single sentence she didn't even mean to speak. I can't hold it all anymore. The words shook as they left her mouth, as if they had been trapped inside her for far too long. And the moment they slipped out, her whole body softened, like she had been carrying a weight that was never meant to be hers alone. Lou didn't rush to comfort her. He didn't panic. He didn't try to force her to stop crying or tell her to calm down. He simply turned a little closer, enough that she felt him there, but not enough to overwhelm her. He waited, giving her space to fall apart in the safest way possible. Amy buried her face in her hands. her shoulders shaking as the emotions finally poured out the frustration. The fear, the exhaustion she had denied for weeks. It was messy, raw, real, and she expected Lou to pull away, to get uncomfortable, to walk out like others did when things got too heavy, but he didn't move, not an inch. Instead, Lou reached out with a slow, steady hand and rested it lightly on her back. No pressure, no trying to fix her, just a quiet touch that said more than words ever could. Let it out. I'm right here. Amy felt it, something she rarely ever felt. Safety. Not the kind that comes from perfect moments or happy days, but the deeper kind. The kind you feel when someone stays even when your world is falling apart. The kind that makes you believe you're not as breakable as you think you are. For the first time in a long time, Amy let herself be human. And Lou stayed, like he always did, steady, calm, and unshakably loyal, proving that some people don't run from your storm. They anchor you through it. Amy's tears finally slowed, but the heaviness didn't lift, not yet. It's strange how a person can cry their heart out and still feel like the world is sitting on their shoulders. She wiped her face with shaky hands, embarrassed by her own emotions. She hated looking vulnerable. She hated feeling like she needed someone. But Lou, he didn't look at her like she was weak. He looked at her like she was fighting a battle. No,